Yo, what is up, everybody? Popo here, bring you guys a new video, and today we're going to be recapping the Los Angeles Regionals. Let's go. Welcome, everybody, and I am back. I know it's been a little while since I made a video. They were doing construction on the apartment I live in. Hopefully, they are finally complete with that. And yeah, I hope to keep bringing you guys some videos again and having a good time. So we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Regional Championships this time around. It was an amazing event. The most scuffed regional is what I've been told. They had a lot of problems with the internet early on. Round one didn't start for the first 3-ish hours. And that was really rough. They even started the stream with the first round, which they never do. That usually starts on round 3. And on top of that, they actually cut round 8 and 9 and made that on day 2. So technically, if you were at the event and you didn't drop, you made day 2. So congratulations to everybody. But yeah, the structure was the same. If you want to win this event, you're going to have to win 10 rounds of games on day 2, which is crazy. So credit to everybody who was able to play that long, because I would not have been, and credit to everybody for staying calm, collected, and allowing them to get everything fixed. Though we will see when we go over some of these games that it necessarily was not fixed. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually go look at the Pokemon. We want to see what the top competitors were for this event. It's pretty standard looking at most of it. If you've been paying attention to the meta recently, we've seen a couple of different restricteds win these events. We saw Zamazenta win 2 regionals, and then we also saw Miraidon come out of nowhere and win the first regionals of the new format with Rajan's team. That was a very interesting result. Nobody was expecting that. I had Zamazenta high on my board. I thought it was like the 4th best restricted, so that didn't surprise me too much, though I did get a lot of backlash for saying Zamazenta was the 4th best restricted Pokemon. So, but everybody's quieted down about that. But anyway, so let's get right into this. We're actually seeing a huge drop in the use of Incineroar. Incineroar was around 60% at the last 3 regionals. Dropping down to 40% is a huge decrease for this Pokemon. Less than 50% win percentage. Remember, we talked about before that if you are less than that 50%, but you have some of the highest usages, that means you're not being super effective in a lot of matchups, and a lot of people have Pokemon that are able to counter this. This is close enough to 50% to be okay. But when you start talking about like Tornadus seeing 48%, then we can start seeing some ineffective use of such a Pokemon. We see Rillaboom 51% on a 30% usage. That's really good. Driving up to the 2nd position. I didn't think this would be 2nd. I thought Amoonguss would continue to be 2nd, since Amoonguss is so good against Zamazenta and had won the last 2 regionals, though it is pretty bad against Miraidon. So I can kind of see that that little bit of a change, though both of Miraidon's main electric attacks actually make contact, so you can do damage with that Rocky Helmet on the Amoonguss. And then, yep, Tornadus didn't do really well. We had Urshifu Rapid Strike coming back up. It dropped. I thought it would be higher. I thought it would be number 3. Around 40%, but it seems like the meta is kind of flattening out rather than, you know, becoming lopsided, which is a really interesting thing going into the 3rd regionals. And with only 1 event left, it's going to be interesting to see at North American International Championship if this is going to continue as a trend here, if we're going to continue to see these Pokemon increasing or decreasing in usage. And 48% is getting on that territory as well, is where a lot of people have stuff that counter at Rillaboom being a very good example of this. But all 4 of these Pokemon actually got 1st place. Once again, we'll go over some of the matches in a minute here. Next, we have Fluttermane. Fluttermane being 5th. That's come up a little bit. I believe it was 6th at the last couple of regionals with a 51% win percentage. That means this thing is improving in win percentage. It's having better matchups because a lot less people are preparing for it. So that is a huge thing for Fluttermane. We got Raging Bolt, 53% win percentage is crazy. This Pokemon is very, very good, and people are prepared for it. So that's just showing how strong it is with one of the strongest restricteds and the most used restricted in day one, being the same exact type as this Pokemon, and yet this Pokemon is still putting out 53% win percentages is crazy. That cannot be understated, and I just want everybody to understand how significant that actually is. It is very, very strong. Raging Bolt can just be used in a couple of different ways that allows it to be effective on almost any team. Like, this thing can be thrown into a lot of different teams and just be good. It could just be good. We have a Amoonguss at 51 win percentage, so almost the same, a little bit negligible against that Rillaboom in that win percentage, so I wouldn't even consider that a stat. But you can see we have 3 grass types in the top 8, which is really cool. We have Whimsicott. I said this Pokemon would get better in a restricted format. I am being proven correctly. A lot of people also said that I was wrong about that and that it would not improve going into a restricted format, but it always does. So I am not surprised to see Whimsicott doing really well. I think it's better than Tornadus, and the win percentage being 3% different kind of shows you that, though the final result being 6th versus 1st kind of fights that argument the opposite way. Next I have Farigiraf at exactly 50%. So once again, it didn't do well, it didn't do bad. It is fine. It's fine. 9th place isn't the best result for it, but it did well enough. Next is a big surprise Pokemon here. We have Chi-Yu at 18%, which is pretty big for Chi-Yu, especially because it had dropped down when this format first started. We didn't really see it used too much in the first couple of regionals, but a 57 win percentage means this thing is increasing, and it's going to be used a lot at the North American International Championships. So make sure that you guys are prepared for this thing. It pairs really well with a couple of the restricted, especially the hyper offensive versions of those restricteds. And a lot of the games we're actually going to go over today actually feature Chi-Yu. Only a 6th place finish despite having a 57% win percentage is really interesting. It doesn't really show that this Pokemon did so well, but also placing in that top 8 is always going to be good. We have Miraidon, but we'll skip that for now. We have Chien-Pao at 50%. This Pokemon has been rising recently with the increase of Zamazentas. Pairs really well with them, and you can do a lot. And then the last of the top 12 normal Pokemon, we have the Pelipper at 14% with a 53% win percentage. This Pokemon has dropped significantly. I'm not really sure why. It's really good, and you can see that with the 53% win percentage and getting that 2nd place. That Pelipper is really, really strong. Now, let's talk about the restricteds here. So the top restricted was Miraidon. Only a 48% win percentage means it didn't do really well, and it fell right outside of that top cut, so it didn't even get top cut. And being the 11th most used Pokemon, that is very surprising to not even get a top cut and have that negative right there. So Miraidon falling down, a lot more people are prepared for it. There's a lot of ground or even ground Terra Pokemon going around, so Miraidon's being shut down a little bit more than it used to be. But, and I actually started recording a video for Friday, though I couldn't stop coughing for some reason, so I just didn't end up posting it. But we had Calyrex Ice Rider, and I said this Pokemon was going to be big in this tournament in that video, because a lot of the Zamazenters, they're actually dropping the Wide Guard for a different move, whether that be Iron Defense or something else. They are dropping that, so you can take advantage of that with something like the Calyrex Ice. Calyrex Ice is okay matched up into him, especially if you pair it with some special attackers. You're able to really take advantage of the Zamazenta matchups. It's really good into the Miraidon matchup, so I felt like this Pokemon was in a really good position to do well this weekend. It ended up getting 2nd place, so I wasn't too far off. And with a 54% win percentage, this Pokemon really showed up and was able to put up some good results. So respect to Calyrex. People are going to have to start making sure that they have something for it again, because if Calyrex is going to be super common again, you're going to need to be able to fight it effectively. And yeah, Trick Room as well. Trick Room really showed out. We have Blood Moon do terrible at this event. We saw a couple of regionals ago. It did really, really well. It was like 56% win percentage or something crazy like that. 21st place was his best finish. Not very good. It was probably a team similar to Rajan's team. And yeah, 45% just isn't cutting it. We're going to see Ursaluna Blood Moon actually drop. I personally think that the other Blood Moon is I mean, the other Ursaluna is better right now. But who knows? But we're talking about restricteds anyways. I just wanted to bring that up because of how bad it did. We have Terrapagos. I always say this Pokemon's name wrong. 50% win percentage. Okay, sure. 22nd place is not very good, seeing as how this Pokemon has been top 8ing all the regionals and actually got second twice in a row. Now it has fallen 22nd place. We see the Zamazenta's increasing, so therefore Zamazenta's really good against this Pokemon, so it's just not as effective. Once again, Y-Guard's kind of slowing down a little bit, so those Calyrex Ices are a lot better against this too. The Shadows are still not very good against it, but yeah, there's just a lot of other stuff that people could do. Urshifu being super common also hurts it too. And it's still kind of teetering on what set is the best for it, and there's kind of a lot of contention for it. It doesn't mean the Pokemon won't be back in the future. It might even win the International coming up in a couple of weeks, but as of right now, this Pokemon did not perform up to expectations. Next, we have Zamazenta, the winner of the last two regionals. 52% is still a really good result, but getting 10th place is pretty bad for it. You would expect to see it in that top 8, but just outside of it. Still put up, like I said, decent results. I think this thing will be around 14% going into the International. I think it's still a really good restricted and can be paired with a lot of different Pokemon. Now, people are going to have something that can help them a little bit better against these Calyrex matchups that's outside of just the Zamazenta, and are going to have to try to find something that can make the Zamazenta team maybe a little bit more aggressive. So if somebody can figure that out and really put in a game plan against some of these other restricteds that it's losing to, then I think it'll be back on top easy. It's just a lot of people are using the same team that has been winning, or a slight variation of those teams, and I think that's where it's falling short, because people are just ready for it. Next, we have Ogerpon Cornerstone. So if we go look up, this is actually the top performing Ogerpon, and I don't know if this is the first time or not, but if it is, that's super impressive. 50% win percentage is not great. 26th finish, meh. But just it being here and it having sturdy and stuff like that just really puts it in a position to take a big hit from something and be able to dish back. It's also good against Ice Rider, so maybe we'll see this increasing a little bit to help deal with some of those Ice Rider matchups. Maybe we start seeing it on some of these Zamazenta teams, though they do kind of share a weakness and a half, so who knows about that, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Next, we had Indeedee. Indeedee was pretty meh, 12th place. I still think Indeedee is good. It's just one of those Pokemon that is just decent. It's just decent. We're not talking about those, though. We're talking about Koraidon here. Koraidon, 51% win percentage is not too bad. I think that might be its best win percentage. Yeah, I still think Koraidon is one of the top restricteds. I just don't think anybody's had that team that's really clicked with it, and maybe at their International or at Worlds, we might see somebody coming in with that unique team that can really take advantage of the power of Koraidon and using its abilities and stuff. And then last one we'll talk about here is going to be Calyrex Shadow Rider, because this is the Pokemon that won, but only 52% win percentage. People are still really prepared for with this, and despite it getting first place, it did okay. I mean, with 9% of the field, that's all right, but it just really shows how strong of a player the winner of the regional was. And yeah, Montana Mont really played this Pokemon to perfection and was able to use its advantages and its team to put itself in good positions. So really good. And then we saw Iron Hands, by the way. The return of Iron Hands, 54. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, but let's talk about day 2 before we go on. We see On day 2, going to the regular Pokemon, we see that Incineroar actually increases by a few percent. No real crazy stuff there. Rillaboom drops down, but is about the same percent, so not really losing anything. Raging Bolt, however, gains 11% usage. We see the Chi-Yu go crazy, gaining 9% usage. Fluttermane drops down a little bit, though stays in the same position. We see the Amoonguss increasing a little bit as well. Same with the Whimsicott, going up a place each. We see the Urshifu Rapid Strike have probably the biggest decrease, I believe, going from a 26% all the way down to a 21%, so it's going to be a 5% drop. Actually, Tornadus has a bigger drop than that. It goes down to 20% from 27%. We see Farigiraf, it's going to lose 3%, but it's going to kind of still be in the same position. We see Ogerpon Wellspring gain 6%, moving itself up. And Iron Hands goes from 9 to 14, making the top 12 in day 2. Going to the restricteds, it's a little bit of a different story here as we see Miraidon actually dropping down to second place. Despite gaining 2% on its usage, but we see Calyrex Ice Rider go from 13% to 21%. 21% would actually make it the 8th most used Pokemon in the whole entire day 2, which is kind of crazy. We see Koraidon coming up too, going up. Actually, didn't go up at all, barely, but it is now number 3, overtaking a couple of the others. Zamazenta being the 4th at 10%, dropping down just slightly, and we see an increase in Shadow Rider. Terapagos dropping drastically. I don't even know where Zacian is on the list. Zacian was at 2%, going to 7. That's 5% increase, and Groudon actually staying exactly the same at 3%. So some wild changes going into day 2. Some of these teams are really condensing on what they're doing. You could see the Ice Riders really being successful. Like I said, now that Y-Guard is gone on that Zamazenta, you're able to take advantage of it a little bit more. Force them to have to do something like the Y-Guard on their other Pokemon, and then that allows you to just get damage onto the Zamazenta or take out that Pokemon respectively. So yeah, it was a wild event, though. Like I said, they started round 1 like 3 hours late. Some people actually finished their round 1 before the internet went down. So some people just had a 3-hour break. But let's talk about how these games went. I have 6 games here that I want to go through. We're going to start with round 1 because they led off with a crazy game. That's Nick Navarre versus Alberto Laura. We had Nick Navarre with Ogerpon, Cornerstone, Whimsicott, Raging Bolt, Chi-Yu, Gothitelle, which made a really big splash at this regionals, and Terapagos. And then we had Alberto Laura with the Chi-Yu, Fluttermane, Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Whimsicott, Miraidon, and we see the Iron Hands. Alberto Laura dominates game 1, going 4-0 without even using his Miraidon. He uses the Iron Hands to really take advantage of the game. Game 2 sees Nick take over the game with his Whimsicott and Terapagos. I'm trying to get that in my head to say it properly. Using using his speed control at the end of the game, where he could set up Tailwind after the other Whimsicott was knocked out. And in game 3, it was a back and forth, but a double knockout from Chi-Yu kind of puts Alberto Laura in a position to win the whole set. And this end game actually came down to foul play from Gothitelle versus a Ghost Chi-Yu. And it's a really good example why you want to make sure that you don't have high IVs on your attack, on your special attackers like this. Because if he has some investment in attack, I don't know what Nick Navarre's set is on Gothitelle, but if he has some investment in attack, it can be a 2-shot against the Chi-Yu. So we saw that it was a 3-shot, so maybe not likely, but it also means Alberto Laura had probably a 0 IV in the attack set of the Chi-Yu. So it's just a perfect example. A lot of people say, why does it matter? This is why it matters. Situations like this, there's some Pokemon that have really good attack stats that could be taken advantage of despite them being a special attacker, especially some of these restricted Pokemon. So Just make sure you get your 0 attacks. Grind out for it. It's not too bad anymore. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. All right, and in the next game we're going to go to is going to be round 3. This is one of my favorite games of the weekend. We had Andrew Zhang versus Giovanni Costa. So we see... Sorry, I'm just laughing because something that's going to happen. But Andrew Zhang has the Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Incin, Lunala. I'm a big fan of Lunala. Grimmsnarl, Rillaboom, and Pelipper. Giovanni Costa has Gyarados, which is a huge surprise. Might have been the only Gyarados in the whole tournament, by the way. Miraidon, Farigiraf, Chi-Yu, Whimsicott, and Iron Hands. We see Iron Hands again. In Game 1, both players start fast by throwing out their restricteds. But Andrew was able to play it slow, position himself well versus the aggressive choices that Giovanni was making, especially with that Miraidon and his Terraflying Gyarados. And he was able to calm mind. Andrew was able to calm mind on the Lunala at a very crucial spot, giving him the win in Game 1. And in Game 2, everything was going well. It was a really good game, but then this happened. And it was over. They ruled that a draw. That meaning that Andrew had to win Game 3 to win the set. If Giovanni wins, then it is going to go to sudden death Game 4, and nobody wants that. But Andrew Zhang was able to keep their composure, was able to really position themselves well again, and Lunala was fantastic and was able to take Game 3 basically by itself. The Pokemon is just that good. But it was a really, really good set. But my favorite part was just that crash. And they actually didn't play for like, it was like 15, 20 minutes or something. It was crazy. So respect, like I said, Andrew was able to keep their composure. Really respect that, because that's a hard situation to kind of keep your composure in when, you know, you have to win this game or else you're in sudden death and you're playing a more control game against a super aggressive player that, like, you can just get knocked out of anywhere. So you have to be really, really careful, and you don't want to go into those. So going into round 7, and actually this was the last game of day 1. Like I said, they moved round 8 and round 9 into the beginning of day 2. They actually started a little bit early to be able to fit those 2 rounds in. We saw Joe Ugarte versus Justin Burns. This is a huge, huge matchup. The winner of this actually guarantees their quote-unquote day 2, which would allow them to actually participate in the rounds after round 9. It was very confusing. So Joe Ugarte is running the Landawai, the Miraidon, Farigiraf, Incineroar, Whimsicott, and Ditto. This is a variation on Aaron Traylor's team. And we see Justin Burns running the Iron Hands, Ditto, Urshifu, Single Strike, Amoonguss, Calyrex, Ice Rider, and Incineroar. So both of these teams running Ditto, which is really cool, and they're both different compositions. So it's just really interesting to see that 2 people are running the same Pokemon differently. Game 1, Justin just starts off right with the Ditto, which transforms into the Landorus Eye, which puts a lot of pressure on Joe's Miraidon. This was a really good Ditto for Justin, and that Miraidon's going to have to switch out. But Joe's Farigiraf has Foul Play, which helps it in the matchups against Calyrex, which is a really good tech to run on Farigirafs, and I see a lot of people are doing it more recently. But it looks like Justin's in control of this game, especially with that Ditto. But Joe forces the Calyrex to actually Terra into Terra Fire with his Incineroar. He puts a lot of pressure. He has those goggles. And doing so, he's able to go for the Sandsear Storm, hitting, and paired with the Fire Blitz is able to KO the Calyrex, winning Game 1 for Joe. In Game 2, Joe brings his own Ditto, copying the Calyrex, but Trick Room really limits what this cloned Calyrex is doing, since it does have that Choice Scarf. So Justin's able to just out-damage Joe's team before the Trick Room ends, and then has his own Ditto, Justin's own Ditto, transforms into Miraidon, who is now faster than Joe's Miraidon, allowing Justin to take advantage of the game. And in Game 3, this is a very close set. It goes back and forth, but we see Joe make a crucial decision, and that is to go for Discharge. Despite it being an attack that will knock out both of Joe's Pokemon, he goes for this. and is able to win the game because he just knocks out every single Pokemon that exists on both teams, because Miraidon just does way too much damage. So it gets past the Rage Powder that Justin was really relying on to stop this Miraidon and get the knockout on it. But yeah, Joe puts himself in a really good position, discharges, just knocks out everything, and wins the set and goes 7-0, starts the day 7-0. I think he ended up starting 9-0, but I could be wrong on that. Our next one, we're going to fast forward quite a few rounds, about 5 rounds. We're going to go to round number 12. So this is official start of day 2. Not start of day 2, but you know what I mean. And we have Joseph Selmer versus Michael Zhang. And this is a really interesting matchup. That's why I wanted to talk about this one. We had Joseph running Rillaboom, Groudon, Chi-Yu, Tornadus, Fluttermane, and Incineroar, while Michael Zhang, the Sacramento regional champion, is running Chandelure, Galarian Moltres, Rillaboom, Chien-Pao, Zamazenta, and Fluttermane. Really interesting with that Chandelure. It counters a couple of Pokemon, so I can see why it works and how it's brought Michael to this point in the tournament. So game 1, Joseph really wanted to make sure that he could put a lot of pressure on Michael with Chi-Yu and Tornadus. His Chi-Yu's running Burning Jealousy, which is a really cool tech to help deal with Zamazentas, because when they come in, they get that defense boost. You go for Burning Jealousy, you get a burn on it on that first turn. So, and the ones that aren't running Protect, it forces them have to Wide Guard, which then you can take advantage with Overheat. But Michael Zhang, being the Sacramento regional champion and have been in these positions before, kept his composure, switched into Chandelure, was able to absorb those attacks, those fire attacks, into that Zamazenta, really take over the game with Chandelure and win game 1. This Pokemon one-shot with a Heat Wave, by the way, to a Fluttermane. So it's kind of crazy. Game 2 was more the same, except at the end game, it was Zamazenta and Chien-Pao controlling the game with that Wide Guard, where Joseph really wasn't able to attack because his 2 best attacks were just blocked by Wide Guard at that point, which was Precipice Blades and Bleakwind Storm. And Michael Zhang was able to take it in 2 games with the most interesting team that I saw this whole weekend. So congratulations to Michael Zhang. I would have loved to see this team make it to top cuts, but unfortunately it did not. But speaking of top cut, we're going to go right into top 4. This was a really good matchup. Now, going into top 4, none of the players have ever won a regional. The closest had been Ryan Haig, who we're going to see here, who actually got 2nd place at the Hartford Regional Championships last year. And yeah, that's the closest. Everybody else has been essentially like top 64. I think there was a top 16, but Ryan had like a top 8 and that top cut. But everybody else, like, basically brand new to this stage of the tournament. So we see Ryan, and Ryan is running the Pelipper, Raging Pole, Incineroar, Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Calyrex, Ice Rider, and Amoonguss. We're seeing a lot of Amoonguss on these stream matches too. And Kian Campbell is running Arilla, Zacian. So we see Zacian get top 4 despite being 2% usage on day 1. Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Chien-Pao, Umbreon, and Tornadus. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the only Umbreon in the tournament as well, but this thing performed in game 1. Both players led with their Urshifus, but Ryan made a crucial play going for Helping Hand on his own and going for that close combat, which was a 1-hit onto Kian's own Urshifu, just eliminating that Pokemon before it could even attack. And it kind of just snowballed from there, where Ryan was able to just take advantage of that Pokemon missing and it being such a crucial Pokemon into the matchup. So yeah, so Ryan was able to cleanly win that one pretty much. Game 2 shows the niche pick of Umbreon and how effective it could be. It going for a lot of yawns and foul plays allowed Kian to actually position themselves in great spots and be able to take advantage, take some of the pressure off your bigger attackers, and maybe just eat an attack or 2 on it, because it was pretty bulky. This Pokemon was just kind of eating, and take the victory. And with Water Terra as well, it just doesn't get hit by the Calyrex very well. So, and it hits back for a lot of damage, especially if there's any boosts. In game 3, Kian got a little bit greedy in game 3. Kian's Zacian was actually up to +4 attack in a okay position, though was very, very weak. And with the Rocky helmet on the Amoonguss, it probably would have knocked out the Zacian. But Kian decided to go for another sword dance into their Zacian, and Ryan did not fall for it and actually went for Rage Powder plus their Glacial Lance, getting a double knockout, leaving Kian with their last Pokemon that was unable to really do anything. And Ryan was able to take the game and make their way into the finals. All right, and now we're going to go to the finals. The finals going to bring us Ryan Haig versus Montana Mont. Neither of these players have won a regionals before. Like I said, Ryan has actually gotten a top cut at Hartford Regionals and a top 8 finish before. Montana only has, I think, top 64 finishes, maybe one top 32. So this is new territory for both of them. Either one winning this one is going to be amazing for them and guarantee them a spot in the World Championships. I don't know if either of these players already had their Worlds invites or not, but they definitely have them after this. So we already know Ryan Haig's team. We'll go over it anyways. We got Pelipper, Raging Bolt, Incineroar, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Calyrex Ice Rider, and Amoonguss. Montana Mont is running that Rillaboom, Calyrex Shadow Rider. So we got Cali versus Cali, Incineroar, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Tornadus, and the Clefairy. Clefairy, the first time we're seeing it here, but it was on stream earlier in the week. Or earlier in the day, sorry. But the first time we are talking about it here. Clefairy, a really good Pokemon in my opinion, very underused. But game 1 has Ryan going for his Terra early on, going into the Raging Bolt and hitting the Calyrex for a ton of damage as his Calyrex Ice Rider gets faked out. And a nasty plot from Calyrex Shadow Rider, but it is now pressured from this Thunderclap. So Montana's going to have to be very, very careful how they play the next few turns, as one misplay could lead to just the end of the game and losing their Calyrex. So Montana, on the next turn, instead of shying away from the pressure, actually goes for another nasty plot in the face of this Thunderclap and a taunt into Calyrex, who did go for the Trick Room. So Montana's actually able to predict this whole turn completely correct. Next turn goes for the Protect and the Parting Shot onto the Raging Bolt, allowing the Clefairy to get in. So now we have a +4 Calyrex Shadow Rider with the Clefairy next to it. Now we can't go for Thunderclap, and this thing is just going to be one-shotting anything it wants to. But we do have a Pelipper in the back, which is going to come out and try to go for Y-Guards, but it doesn't matter because Drain Kiss is a move, and it's going to heal back up to full this Calyrex, and a +5 Helping Hand KOs the Ice Rider, and now Calyrex Shadow Rider is standing there, having kissed everybody, and Montana wins game number 1. Going to game 2, it started exactly the same, except Montana, instead of going for that that nasty plot, actually goes for the Astral Barrage, and with the spell tag on it, which increases it by 20%, it is doing a ton of damage. Almost gets the one shot onto the Calyrex Ice Rider, who once again got faked out. So he is down to 9 HP, and it does more than half to this Raging Bull, putting in a very bad position going into the next turn. But we have that same little thing where that Thunderclap is now going to be pressuring onto the Calyrex, but Montana is able to switch out, go out to Rillaboom, and start taking over the game this way. Get a knockout on the Calyrex using Knockoff, and now Montana has that Calyrex Shadow Rider sitting in the back, ready to go, ready to fight whenever it needs to, and that's exactly what happens. This Calyrex Shadow comes out, and it is down to a Calyrex Shadow Rillaboom versus a Urshifu Rapid Strike Rain and a Pelipper that is on very little HP thanks to a Wood Hammer, and with a Grassy Glide and a Draining Kiss, Montana is able to put the game away, and Montana Mont is your Los Angeles Regional Champion. Congratulations. I don't know if they're going to go to Worlds, but I hope to see them there and root them on because I really enjoyed watching them play, but the games were pretty quick as this was aggressive games from both players, And yeah, they did a really, really, really good job handling the pressure, especially when those thunderclaps were just there to just end the game immediately. And yeah, that's really, really hard to do, and not a lot of players would be able to really handle that pressure. But yeah, it was a great event. Most scuffed regional of all time. Ended with a great final. So respect to that. 10 rounds Montana Ma had to win in order to win the not to win, but had to play on day 2 in order to win this event. So credit to them. I just want to go over a couple more things here. We're going to go over this over here. So we could see that the Incin and Rillaboom are the #1 pairing group, and Incin and Urshifu is #2 at the same percent. So we're seeing a lot of teams using this Water, Fire, Grass core, though that Grass can change, and we could see that with Rillaboom down. I mean, Amoonguss being here instead of Rillaboom, and way down here we could see the Rillaboom and Urshifu only at 9. So there's only about 9% of teams that are using the Incin, Rilla, Urshifu core instead. Going to the items, we see Focus Sash actually taking #1 item now, with Assault Vest as #2. We saw in the past that Assault Vest was actually #1 for a long time. We see Safety Goggles coming all the way up to 3rd. I think Life Orb has been like 3rd for a while, but now dropping down. Clear Amulet was nowhere to be seen in the past, now being the #5 item, and Choice Specs, Covert Cloak, and Choice Scarf rounding out over there. Ghost Terror is actually the #1 Terror. A lot has to do with Zamazenta plus Fake Out from Incineroar. So 17% on that almost. Water is #2. Fairy used to be #1, but Fairy is dropping down #3. Grass giving you another Safety Goggles essentially. And Fire, which is really common on something like Rillaboom, so it makes sense. Down here we have Fake Out, Close Combat, and U-Turn. These are going to be the most common physical moves. Makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of Choice Scarf Urshifus going around who do Close Combat, U-Turn. So you're seeing a lot of that coming from those. We have Moonblast, Draco Meteor, Earth Power, Shadow Ball. We know that the Flutter Mains aren't as popular, but now they're running Moonblast, Shadow Ball, Icy Wind, so we're seeing Dazzling Gleam actually drop out of there and become a lot less common. And we're seeing Snarl actually rising up these ranks here, and no really surprises here. We have Protect, Tailwind, Trick Room, Follow Me, and Taunt with Helping Hand, Wide Guard. Wide Guard being on 5% is pretty significant. We see 43% of Pelipper's running it. I'm surprised this isn't actually higher. Or maybe that might be the amount of usage of this. I think it's the amount of uses, because I think you see that this way, what moves it's running at, what percent. Yeah. So 96.55% of Pelipper's are actually, there was only 3 Pelipper's not running it. So most of the users of Wide Guard are Pelipper's. That's why I love the site. Make sure you guys use the site. This is LabMouse. This is a fantastic website if you want to check out any of the statistics stuff. You can learn a lot from this, especially if you're first getting into VGC, or even if you're a seasoned competitor and you're like, man, what's running Focus Sash? You can see every Pokemon that ran a Focus Sash at this event. There was somebody running a Sinistra with a Focus Sash. There was somebody running Clefairy with a Focus Sash, you know what I mean? Hold on. Who ran Hitmonchan? Hold on. How'd they do? 40? Okay, they went 2 and 3. It wasn't a great showing for them, but you know what? They were out there doing it. This is what they ran with it. Interesting team. Respect it. I respect it. 100%. You know, you had the taunt, upper hand. Respect. But yeah, so that is it for me today. Like I said, I'm back, so look forward to seeing some more videos. I have some discussions I want to go over. I have some other stuff I want to kind of do too. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. But I do appreciate you guys for watching. If you did like the video, make sure you guys thumbs it up. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do so. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everybody.